My parents called my wedding frivolous, didn't show up, but expected me to pay $15,000 for my sisters. I refused. They called me selfish, but they never expected what I did next. I stood outside the venue, checking my watch every few minutes as the ceremony start time drew closer. My heart, a mixture of hope and resignation, kept telling me that maybe, just maybe, they would show up. But deep down, I knew better. I'm Alex Chen, 32, a software architect in Seattle, who had just spent months planning what should have been the happiest day of my life. Yet as I greeted guests at my wedding, I was painfully aware of the 2 empty seats in the front row. Seats I had optimistically reserved for my parents. No calls, no texts, not even a half-hearted excuse about traffic or last-minute emergencies. Just silence. A silence that spoke volumes about where I stood in their priorities. It wasn't like this came as a complete shock. For weeks leading up to the wedding, my parents had been vocal about how frivolous they thought weddings were, how I was wasting money on nonsense, and how I should have just signed papers at City Hall and been done with it. But it was never about the money. It was about control. My younger sister Olivia, 27, was the golden child. She could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, had spent my entire existence trying to prove that I was worthy of their love and respect. I thought that maybe, if I did everything right, they would finally see me the way they saw her. I was wrong. Olivia did show up, of course. She made a grand entrance halfway through the reception, wearing a dress that rode the fine line between appropriate and bridal white. She spent most of the evening sulking at a corner table, barely acknowledging me. When I finally caught a moment alone with her, I couldn't help but ask why our parents hadn't come. "Why would they?" she scoffed, swirling champagne in her glass. "It's just a wedding, not something important." Those words burned themselves into my consciousness. Not something important. I let them simmer there, a quiet reminder of where I stood in my family's hierarchy. But life has a peculiar way of revealing hypocrisy. A year later, when Olivia got engaged to her boyfriend Patrick, everything changed. Suddenly, weddings weren't frivolous anymore. They were essential cultural milestones. My parents, who had dismissed my ceremony as a waste of time, now treated hers like the social event of the decade. They gushed about venues, debated color schemes, and spent hours discussing flower arrangements. Then came the call I should have anticipated. "We were thinking," my mother said, her voice carrying that careful, calculating tone I knew all too well, "that you could help out with some of the costs. Just a little bit, you know, to support your sister." I nearly laughed. The audacity was almost impressive. "You mean like how you supported me when I got married?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral despite the bitterness rising in my throat. There was a pause. Then my father's voice cut in, sharp as always. "Don't be childish, Alex. Your wedding was a completely different situation." "Right," I said. "Different because it was mine." My mother quickly redirected the conversation. "Well, the venue alone is $25,000, and then there's catering, the dress, the flowers." "How much?" I interrupted, not interested in the itemized breakdown of a celebration I knew would exclude me in all but financial contribution. Another pause. $15,000, she finally said, her voice hesitant yet still expectant, as if the sheer audacity of the request might shame me into compliance. I took a slow, deliberate breath. No. The silence that followed was deafening, but short-lived. My father's anger erupted through the phone. "You're being selfish," he barked. "Olivia would do this for you." I couldn't help the humorless chuckle that escaped me. "Would she? Because I don't remember her offering to help when I was struggling to cover my own wedding expenses." "She is your sister," my mother tried, her voice softer now, attempting manipulation instead of anger. "This is what family does." Family. That word had been weaponized against me my entire life. Growing up, everything was about Olivia. Her achievements were celebrated. her whims indulged. I was an afterthought, a backup plan, a convenient ATM. When Olivia needed money for her dance competitions, my parents found a way. When I needed help paying for coding boot camp, I was told to figure it out. When she wanted to study in Australia for a semester, they dipped into their savings. When I needed first and last month's rent for my first apartment, I had to work overtime for months. Somehow, through all of that, I still kept trying to prove myself to them. When Olivia graduated and couldn't find a job in her field, I was already working full-time at a tech startup, saving and being responsible. But that didn't stop my parents from expecting me to help support her. "She's still finding her path," my mother would say. "You're more established than she is." So I paid. I covered small things at first, her groceries, her phone bill. Then it escalated to rent payments, car repairs, even her vacations with friends. Every time I tried to protest, my parents shut me down with that magic word, family. But that so-called help only ever flowed in one direction. When I got engaged to Jamie, I foolishly thought things might change. We planned a modest wedding, nothing extravagant, just a gathering at a local botanical garden with close friends and the few family members who genuinely cared. I invited my parents, of course. Despite everything, some part of me still yearned for their approval, still believed that maybe, if they saw how happy I was, they'd be happy for me too. They didn't come. Instead, they went on a weekend trip to Portland with Olivia. I should have cut them off then, should have recognized the writing on the wall, but the part of me that still craved their validation held on. Now they were asking me for $15,000 like it was a foregone conclusion. Like I owed them something. I thought saying no would be enough. I thought they'd accept it and move on. I was wrong. The escalation began with guilt-tripping calls from my mother and stern messages from my father. "Think about what you're doing," they'd say. "Do you really want to be the reason your sister's wedding is ruined?" Then Olivia got involved, her texts dripping with entitlement. "You're seriously not helping? It's just money. You make plenty at that fancy tech job. Why are you being so bitter?" Bitter. That word stung more than it should have. She had no idea what I had sacrificed for her over the years. I didn't reply. A week later, the calls changed. No more fake concern, just raw anger. "You think you're better than us?" my father snarled during our last phone conversation. "You think just because you got married and moved to that fancy neighborhood, you're too good for your family?" I almost laughed at how transparent it all was. "No," I said calmly. "I just think it's time you figured things out without me." The next day, I received an email from Patrick, Olivia's fiancé. "Hey, I don't know what's going on between you and your family, but this is getting out of hand. Your parents are really upset, and Olivia is stressed beyond belief. I get that there's history here, but maybe we can come to some kind of compromise. You don't have to pay the full $15,000, but if you could contribute something, it would mean a lot. Let's talk." I stared at the screen for a long time. Patrick seemed like a decent guy. I had nothing against him, but this wasn't his fight. I closed the email without replying. That was my second mistake, because after that, things went nuclear. Olivia went full victim mode on social media, posting vague updates about selfish people who don't care about family, and how heartbroken she was that certain loved ones were refusing to be there for her in her time of need. The messages poured in. Mutual friends, extended family, even colleagues who had somehow caught wind of the drama. "What's going on? Why aren't you helping Olivia?" "Dude, it's just money. Don't be that guy." At first I ignored it all, but then I started getting messages from my parents' friends, people I barely knew. "I always thought you were a good son. I guess I was wrong. This is disgraceful. Your poor mother is beside herself. You should be ashamed." Ashamed. That was the word that finally pushed me over the edge. I had spent my entire life feeling ashamed. Ashamed that I wasn't enough. ashamed that I wasn't the child they wanted, ashamed that no matter how much I gave, it was never appreciated. But now I was done. If they wanted to see what selfish really looked like, I'd show them. I made my decision. I was going to cut them off completely. No more money, no more answering calls, no more pretending we were some kind of functional family. They had made their choice a long time ago. Now I was making mine. I knew the final confrontation would be intense, but even I wasn't prepared for how ugly it would get. They insisted we meet in person to talk like adults, as my mother put it. But I knew this wouldn't be a conversation. It would be an ambush. When I arrived at their North Seattle home, they were all waiting. My mother, father, and of course, Olivia. She was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, her face already flushed with anger. "Sit down," my father ordered, gesturing to the lone chair positioned across from their united front. I remained standing. He began, "Let's talk about your disgraceful behavior." I almost laughed. Disgraceful behavior? Because I refused to hand over $15,000? "This isn't disgraceful," I replied calmly. "These are my boundaries." My mother threw up her hands. "Boundaries? Seriously? You're turning your back on your own family. You should be helping your sister." I looked at Olivia. She was clutching her phone, jaw tight with frustration. "Tell me, Olivia," I asked, crossing my arms. "Would you help me if I asked?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Don't be ridiculous. You have a great job at that tech company. You're just being cheap." "Cheap?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Do you even remember how much I've helped you? Your rent, your bills. Every time you ran into trouble, I bailed you out. You're my brother," she snapped. "That's what you're supposed to do." And there it was, the final confirmation I needed. I exhaled slowly. "Okay," I said. "Let's put everything on the table then." I took out my phone and opened a document, a record of every expense I had covered for Olivia in the last decade. $43,750, I said, turning the screen toward them. "That's how much I've spent on you, Olivia, not counting small favors, birthday gifts, or the times I helped Mom and Dad." The room went silent. "I never asked for anything in return," I continued. "But now, the first time I say no, you all turn on me." My father slammed his hand on the coffee table. "Enough of this nonsense. We are family, and family helps each other." I stared at him. "Then where were you when I needed help?" My mother gasped. "How can you say that? We've always supported you." I let out a hollow laugh. "Really? Then why didn't you come to my wedding?" Their faces darkened. Olivia shot up from her seat, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "You're just being bitter. You want to punish all of us because you're miserable. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." I stared at her, waiting for the pain to hit. But there was nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. I finally understood. I was never family to them. I was just an ATM. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "From this moment on, I am no longer part of this family. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." My father stood, furious. "If you walk out that door, don't come back." I smiled. "Perfect." I turned and left. Olivia was screaming behind me. My mother started sobbing, but I didn't look back. When I got into my car, my father's number popped up on my phone. I silenced it. This time, they could cry, yell, and curse all they wanted. I was finally free. I thought walking away would be the end of it, that I could just cut them off and finally live my life in peace. I was wrong. The storm didn't pass. It only grew stronger. For the first few days, my phone exploded with calls and messages. "Mom, please, sweetheart, don't do this. We're family." "Dad, you're being childish. Call us back." "Olivia, you're so selfish. I hope you're happy being alone." "Aunt Karen, I don't know what's happening, but your mother is in tears. Fix this." I ignored every single one. For the first time in my life, I felt a strange calm, an unfamiliar silence that wasn't filled with demands, expectations, or obligations. I had always thought family was supposed to feel like home, but now that I had shut the door on them, I realized my home had never been with them in the first place. But my parents weren't the type to accept defeat. The real battle was just beginning. It took less than a week for my mother to switch from anger to desperation. She left voicemail after voicemail, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. "I don't understand how you can be so cruel to your own family. Olivia's been so stressed about the wedding. She says she doesn't even want to go through with it anymore. Is that what you wanted? I miss you, sweetheart. Can we just talk?" I almost believed that last part. Almost. But I knew better. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them. They missed my money, my compliance, their control over me. It wasn't me they wanted back. It was the version of me they could manipulate. 2 weeks later, the situation escalated. I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but when I listened, my stomach dropped. "Hey, just wanted to check in," my boss said. "I got a call from your father. He said he was worried about you, that you were acting erratically and making reckless financial decisions. He asked if we could help. Call me back." I froze. They were trying to sabotage my career. I called my boss immediately, explaining everything. He listened carefully, then let out a long sigh. "That's some manipulative nonsense," he said. "You don't need to worry, just focus on work. If they call again, I'll shut it down." I hung up, my hands shaking. They weren't just upset. I had become their enemy, and if they couldn't control me, they would rather see me fail. That was the moment I knew, without a doubt, that I had made the right decision. After that, the calls stopped. No more voicemails, no more messages, no more desperate attempts to pull me back in. At first I thought it was over. Then I realized they weren't done. They were just regrouping. 2 months passed. Life was quieter, calmer. I focused on work, advancing a new project that was gaining traction with our clients. I went out more, reconnected with friends I had neglected while dealing with family drama. I started actually enjoying my life. Then one evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "Olivia, I hope you're happy. The wedding is canceled. Mom and Dad blame you. I blame you. You ruined everything." I read it twice. Then I deleted it because, for the first time in my life, I didn't care. 3 months later, just when I thought they had finally let go, my mother showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to see her standing there, clutching her purse, eyes red from crying. I should have closed the door in her face, but I didn't. I stepped outside and crossed my arms. "What do you want?" She sniffled. "Can we talk?" I didn't say anything, just waited. She took a deep breath. "Your father isn't doing well. This whole situation has put so much stress on him. He's not sleeping, he's barely eating." I said nothing. She tried again. "I know we made mistakes. I know things got complicated, but we're your family." That word again. Family. It was the word they had always used to keep me under control, to keep me giving, sacrificing, bending. But it didn't work anymore. "I'm not coming back, Mom," I said flatly. She looked stunned. "You can't mean that." "I do." Her face twisted. "So that's it? You're abandoning us?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You abandoned me years ago. I'm just returning the favor." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't even recognize you anymore." I met her gaze. "Maybe that's because, for the first time, I'm not bending over backwards for you." She took a shaky breath, as if trying to process that. Then she shook her head. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, stepping back inside. "I won't." And I shut the door. That was the last time I saw my mother. I heard through distant relatives that Olivia ended up having a smaller, less extravagant wedding at a local restaurant. My parents weren't happy about it, and they blamed me for everything. I expected that. What I didn't expect was how good it would feel to finally be free. No more guilt, no more manipulation, no more being treated like an ATM instead of a son. For the first time in my life, I was living for me, and I had never been happier. I used to think that family was forever, that no matter what, blood was thicker than water, that if I just proved myself, worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, one day my parents would finally see my worth. That day never came, and now it never will. It's been a year since I walked away, since I set boundaries and finally chose myself over them. In that year, I've learned more about family, love, and self-respect than I ever did in all the years I spent trying to please them. 6 months after I cut them off, my father tried one last time to reach out. I was at work when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but when I listened, my stomach twisted. Look, I know things got messy, but we're still your parents, and you'll always be our son. I think it's time to let the past go and come home. Not once did he say sorry. Not once did he acknowledge what they had done. Just a smooth, calculated attempt to reel me back in like nothing had ever happened. I thought about calling back, about giving him one last chance, but then I remembered everything. The years of emotional blackmail, the way they had laughed off my wedding while taking my money, the way they had tried to sabotage my career when I refused to play their game. I deleted the voicemail. That was the last time they ever tried to contact me. 1 year later, I'm happier than I've ever been. I got promoted to lead architect at work, something that would have been impossible if I was still financially shackled to my family's endless needs. I moved to a new apartment in Capitol Hill, far away from the North Seattle neighborhood where my parents' shadow still loomed. Most importantly, I built real relationships. People who actually care about me, friends who don't see me as a wallet, and a partner who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. For the first time in my life, I know what healthy love feels like. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean they deserve access to your life. Love without respect isn't love. It's control. And no matter what anyone says, you don't owe anyone your peace, your money, or your sanity just because you share DNA. I used to think that walking away from my family was the worst thing I could ever do. Now I realize it was the best decision I ever made. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life experiences about setting boundaries and finding self-worth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue sharing these important stories